Hello friends, today we'll discuss Aphorism 19 to 25 and learn about the knowledge of medicine. Do you remember my lecture on the third aphorism? Let us recollect a little bit about it. The third aphorism states, if the physician clearly perceives what is to be cured in disease, that is to say, in every individual case of disease, if he clearly perceives what is curative in medicines, that is to say, in each individual medicine, and if he knows how to adapt according to clearly defined principles what is curative in medicines to what he has discovered to be undoubtedly morbid in the patient, so that the recovery must ensue. So in the third aphorism, Hahnemann discussed about three basic forms of knowledge that a physician must have. Number one, what is to be cured in disease. Number two, what is curative in medicines. And number three, how to use this knowledge of medicine to cure the sick. Now, today we are going to discuss the part 2, that is what is curative in medicines. In the first aphorism, we discussed the mission of a physician. In the second, we discussed the highest ideal of cure, and in the third, we discussed what knowledge is required by a physician to effect a cure. From aphorism 4 to 18, we discussed the first form of knowledge that Hahnemann talked about in aphorism number 3, that is knowledge of what is to be cured in a disease. If you remember, in those aphorisms, Hahnemann talked about the importance of symptoms and how they reflect the internal essence of the disease. The aphorism 19 to 34 elaborate the second form of knowledge, that is, what is curative in medicines. And from 35 to 69, we will discuss how to adapt our knowledge of medicine to cure sick patients. To understand what is curative in medicine, we will explore aphorisms 19 to 34 and will try to understand what Hahnemann said about finding the curative powers of medicines. We will do this in three parts. Number one, understand what is the curative power of a medicine, which is given in aphorism 19 to 25. Number two, nature's law of cure, which is given in aphorism 26 and 27. And number three, understand why we react more to medicines in the disease state, which is given in aphorism 28 to 34. So let us start our study on the curative powers of medicine. Hahnemann discussed the curative powers of our medicine in aphorism 19 to 25. In the 19th aphorism, he says that disease is nothing but an altered state of health, and to effect a cure, we need to change the disease state back to the healthy condition. So the medicines must have the power to alter our state of health, and indeed, the curative powers arise solely from the ability to alter our state of health. Let us read the aphorism 19th and see what he has written. Now, as diseases are nothing more than alterations in the state of health of the healthy individual, which express themselves by morbid signs, and the cure is also only possible by a change to the healthy condition of the state of health of the diseased individual, it is very evident that medicines could never cure disease if they did not possess the power of altering man's state of health, which depends on sensations and functions. Indeed, that their curative power must be owing solely to this power they possess of altering man's state of health. The aphorism looks very simplistic, but it lays down the first characteristic for a medicine. That is, it should not be inert. It should have the potential to alter the health of a living being. Now, some of you might say that many homeopathic medicines are derived from inert substances like lycopodium and silica. The source of these medicines could be inert, but the form, that is the potentized form, in which they are used is not inert. How powerful the effect of these medicines could be can only be learned through experience. I'll share a small incident here. I developed premature graying of hairs after a bout of typhoid at age 10. When I was a first year medical student, I read that lycopodium is indicated for premature graying of hairs. Without thinking much, I took a dose of lycopodium 1 mg. A couple of days later, I started getting a sensation as if I had a swelling in my right inguinal region. I was frightened by the thought of having inguinal hernia. I would check the area repeatedly, do the cough test for hernia repeatedly, but the swelling was never there. I could never see it, I could never palpate it, but I could feel it. The sensation was always there. I later realized that I was proving lycopodium, and it took more than 1 year for the sensation to go. That was my first lesson in understanding the power of the potentized medicines, their ability to alter a man's state of health. So coming back to this aphorism, the form in which we intend to use a medicinal substance should not be inert. It should have the power to alter a man's state of health. Now let us move on to the next aphorism, which states, the spirit-like power to alter man's state of health, which lies hidden in the inner nature of medicines, can in itself never be discovered by us by a mere effort of reason. It is only by experience of the phenomena it displays when acting on the state of health of man that we can become clearly cognizant of it. So after saying that a medicine should have the power to alter our health, Hahnemann tells us how to identify or discover the medicinal powers of a medicine, of a substance. He says that we can only find out about the effectiveness of a medicine by understanding its effect on the human body. We need to study how a medicine alters the state of health to understand its sphere of action. He further says that the power of medicines to alter man's state of health is spirit-like. Here again, the spirit-like just stands for something that is invisible and has no religious or spiritual connotations. The first line of this aphorism is actually targeting those conventional medicine contemporaries of Hahnemann who used to proclaim the medicinal effects of various substances without actually testing them. To such people, Hahnemann says that the medicinal properties of a substance are hidden in its interior. They cannot be seen by examining the substance or by making theoretical assumptions. The only way to find the curative powers of a substance is to find out its effect on healthy human beings. Now in the next aphorism, that is aphorism number 21, Hahnemann goes ahead further and tells us that the effect that the medicinal substances have on our body can be perceived through the signs and symptoms that they produce. Let us read what he said. Aphorism number 21. Now, as it is undeniable that the curative principle in medicines is not in itself perceptible, and as in pure experiments with medicines conducted by the most accurate observers, nothing can be observed that can constitute them medicines or remedies except that power of causing distinct alterations in the state of health of the human body, and particularly in that of the healthy individual, and of exciting in him various definite morbid symptoms. So it follows that when medicines act as remedies, they can only bring their curative property into play by means of this their power of altering man's state of health by the production of peculiar symptoms, and that, therefore, we have only to rely on the morbid phenomena which the medicines produce in the healthy body as the sole possible revelation of their indwelling curative power, in order to learn what disease-producing power and at the same time what disease-curing power each individual medicine possesses. Here initially, he repeats what he said in the last aphorism, that the medicinal power of a substance is its potential to alter the state of health. Now things become interesting here. He further clarifies, particularly in that of the healthy individual. This clarification is important. Conventional medicines are often tested on the sick to find out their therapeutic sphere. And in such tests, medicines often do not reveal their full effect on the human body because the sick body is already working in a compromised state. So he stresses that the study of alterations that are produced on a healthy body are most useful to find out the therapeutic sphere of a medicine. But the point to note here is that he has used the word particularly and not only or exclusively. This implies the use of word particular implies that while the proving symptoms are most important, the clinical symptoms may be of some use as well. What he has also said here is that medicines are able to cure symptoms because of their ability to produce similar symptoms. Now, theoretically speaking, this is a corollary, a kind of assumption similar to A is equal to C and B is equal to C. Therefore, A is equal to B. Or we can say in terms of medicine, A medicine produces C symptoms, B disease produces C symptoms. Therefore, A medicine removes C symptoms in disease B. I'll repeat again. A medicine produces C symptoms. B disease also produces C symptoms. Therefore, A medicine removes the C symptoms in disease B. So this is a kind of corollary that we study as the law of similia. Had this been a purely theoretical construct, this would have failed or received more criticism. But Hahnemann was writing from his experience. He had tested the medicines like salts of mercury and silver, borax in China, etc., with known therapeutic action, and had observed that medicines often produce symptoms in healthy individuals which they are known to cure in sick. So the above construct was actually reverse engineered from something like this. A medicine cures B disease. B disease produces C symptoms. A also produces C symptoms. Therefore, the ability in A to produce the C symptoms must be the property which helps us to cure disease B. You see the difference? Here, the first thing that was observed was that A medicine is effective in disease B. The first thing that was observed by Hahnemann was not that the A medicine produces C symptoms or the disease B has C symptoms. The first thing that he observed was that A medicine is able to cure disease B, and then he saw that observed that B disease produces a set of symptoms, and then he observed that when the medicine A is proved on healthy human beings, it also produces the same set of C symptoms for which it has been found effective. So initially, this whole law of similia was reverse engineered and was not stated simply the way we study it today, that A medicine produces C symptoms, B disease produces C symptoms, therefore A medicine removes C symptoms. This is something that I really find interesting, and this is something that the critics of homeopathy should realize, that the law of similia, which we often call the nature's law, it's not something that has been derived from pure theory. The phenomenon was observed by Hahnemann practically, and only the theory was constructed after that. So it is pretty sound, it's pretty effective. Now in the next aphorism, Hahnemann tells us how this ability to produce symptoms helps to remove symptoms or to cure disease, and which type of medicines we should choose to treat the sick. Let us read it. Aphorism 22. But as nothing is to be observed in diseases that must be removed in order to change them into health, besides the totality of their signs and symptoms, and likewise, medicines can show nothing curative besides their tendency to produce morbid symptoms in healthy persons and to remove them in diseased persons, it follows, on the one hand, that medicines only become remedies and capable of annihilating disease because the medicinal substance, by exciting certain effects and symptoms, that is to say, by producing a certain artificial morbid state, removes and abrogates the symptoms already present, to wit, the natural morbid state we wish to cure. On the other hand, it follows that for the totality of the symptoms of the disease to be cured, a medicine must be sought, which, according as experience shall prove whether the morbid symptoms are most readily, certainly, and permanently removed and changed into health by similar or opposite medicinal symptoms, have the greatest tendency to produce similar or opposite symptoms. So, then we have a long footnote to this aphorism, which I am not going to speak aloud. You can read it in your books, but we'll discuss it definitely. The 22nd aphorism states two basic things. First, if a disease becomes evident through signs and symptoms, and the only manifest action of medicines on human beings is their ability to produce symptoms, it is therefore deduced that the ability of a medicine to produce symptoms is what cures the sick. Now, the symptoms that a medicine can produce could be similar or opposite to the symptoms of disease. The second thing that Hahnemann says is that a remedy must be chosen which has the greatest tendency to produce similar or opposite symptoms. Now, this is interesting. He did not say that right at the onset that you should choose only the medicine that produces similar symptoms. What he is initially saying is that the medicine, we first read that he said that the medicine should not be inert. It should have the ability to bring about some change in the human economy, human organism. And now he's saying that the effect can either be similar or it can be opposite. In the next aphorisms, he will elaborate. He will actually discuss both the methods, both the types of medicines, the similar and the opposite, and then he will tell us how the similar medicine is more effective. But for the time being, for now, he is saying that the medicine can be either similar or opposite. The second thing that the Hahnemann says is that a remedy must be chosen which has the greatest tendency to produce similar or opposite symptoms. So the second thing that he's saying, that the medicine which is going to be most effective should have the most similar or most opposite symptoms. He further says that experience will teach us whether the medicines that produce similar symptoms are able to cure quickly and permanently, or the medicines that produce opposite symptoms are more effective in producing a rapid and permanent cure. I think time has certainly shown that conventional medicine is not able to cure the diseases. The antipathic mode can only palliate or suppress symptoms. That is why we have so many anti-things in the conventional medicine: antibiotics, anti-inflammatory, antidepressants, antihypertensive, antipyretics, etc. In a long footnote to aphorism 22, Hahnemann discussed a third form of treatment which he called allopathic. The application of medicines that have similar effect were called homeopathy, and the application of medicine that have opposite action was called antipathy. The application of medicines or treatment that had neither similar nor opposite action was called allopathy. The conventional medicine of his time was full of such methods and medicines, like using diuretics, diaphoretics, medicines used for purging the alimentary canal, and procedures like bloodletting as treatment for nearly every possible disease. Hahnemann was strongly against the use of such untested medicines and methods, and even called their application murderous. Even today, the conventional medicine is known as allopathy in many parts of the world. But today's conventional medicine is primarily antipathic. There is no separate antipathic school today. Antipathy and allopathy have merged to form one entity, which is either called allopathy or conventional medicine today. If you read the footnote more carefully, you will observe one more important thing. Hahnemann says in the footnote to aphorism 22, when made ill by noxious agents, a life principle cannot do anything else than express its depression caused by disturbance of the regularity of its life. This means, and is very obvious too, that when we are sick, our vital force or life principle or the thermodynamic energy system in our body is depressed. He further says that the use of allopathic medicines decreases the vitality further. This is something that can be experienced very easily, hands-on, even today. It is so common to experience low energy, bad taste, and indigestion after a round of antibiotics used for many acute illnesses. The infection goes away, but the body does not feel fit, and it often takes many more days and sometimes weeks for the body to recover its lost vitality. Compare this to the homeopathic medicines, where we look for and notice a change in vitality as the first sign of cure. So the difference is very contrasting. We have one treatment which decreases the vitality, and there is another treatment which improves the vitality, which increases the vitality right at the onset. Now, in the next aphorism, Hahnemann says, experience has shown that medicines that produce opposite symptoms usually do not cure permanently. In fact, after the symptoms are palliated with some antipathic medicines, they often rebound with greater intensity. Try withdrawing the painkiller of an arthritis patient or the antihypertensive of a hypertensive patient and see how the pain and BP shoot up. Let us read the 23rd aphorism. He says, all pure experience, however, and all accurate research convince us that persistent symptoms of disease are far more from being removed and annihilated by opposite symptoms of medicines. That is, that on the contrary, after transient apparent alleviation, they break forth again only with increased intensity and become manifestly aggravated. We have already discussed the essence of this aphorism, but I would like to point your attention towards the use of the phrase persistent symptoms of disease. This is significant, indeed very significant, because Hahnemann is clearly stating that antipathic method will always fail in curing the persistent symptoms, that is, the chronic diseases. In treatment of chronic diseases, the symptoms often persist or rebound after an initial amelioration, when the allopathic medicines are used. But the same is not true for acute diseases. In acute diseases, the cause of the symptoms, which is commonly some form of infection, is often removed by the antipathic measures, and you usually do not see a relapse unless the patient has very low vitality or the acute is actually an acute exacerbation of an underlying chronic complaint. That is why we often do not see a rebound of diarrhea or fever after a course of antibiotics. But do not assume that the antipathic mode is good for treating acute conditions. That is not the case. We might not see a rebound phenomena in acute diseases, but we often see lowered vitality as mentioned in the last aphorism. We also see increased susceptibility, more suppressions, and increased tendency for chronic diseases. When modern medicine was not modern enough, the epidemics were usually of acute diseases. But with the advent of the anti-medicines, the acute diseases and epidemics might have gone down, but the chronic diseases have blown out to pandemic proportions. So the antipathic mode may be useful at times, but it should not be preferred. It should not be the preferred first line of treatment in most conditions. In the next aphorism, that is aphorism number 24, Hahnemann derives the conclusion that only a similar remedy is able to effect a cure. Let us read what he says. Aphorism number 24. There remains, therefore, no other mode of employing medicines in disease that promises to be of service besides the homeopathic, by means of which we seek, for the totality of the symptoms of the case of disease, a medicine which among all medicines, whose pathogenetic effects are known from having been tested in healthy individuals, has the power and the tendency to produce an artificial morbid state most similar to that of the case of disease in question. In Aphorism 22nd, Hahnemann stated that only those medicines should be used which have a known similar or opposite action on the diseased condition. In the 23rd aphorism, he then exposes the failure of the antipathic mode in treating chronic diseases. And in this aphorism, that is in the aphorism number 24, he lays down his conclusion that the only acceptable mode of employing medicines on sick is the homeopathic method, and only those medicines should be applied whose action has been documented by testing on healthy individuals. Apart from this, I would like to draw your attention to a phrase that Hahnemann has used in this aphorism. He used the words, the case of disease, twice in this aphorism. Once he said for the totality of the symptoms of the case of disease, and later he said an artificial morbid state most similar to that of the case of disease in question. This is significant because many modern teachers teach to ignore the nosological disease while focusing entirely on the mental and emotional symptoms or the PQRS symptoms. Hahnemann has nowhere said so. He did ask us to individualize each case of a disease, and he did say that the mental and emotional symptoms and PQRS symptoms are often more important. But nowhere has he said not to use the information and knowledge about the disease. People think that thinking about the disease in classical homeopathy is a crime. They only have to think about the case. They forget that had there been no dis-ease and no disease, there would be no case. Now in the next aphorism, Hahnemann reiterates the importance of symptom similarity and also lays down the fact that the potency and dilution are also very important. Let us read what he says. Aphorism number 25. Now, however, in all careful trials, pure experience, the sole and infallible oracle of the healing art, teaches us that actually that medicine which, in its action on the healthy human body, has demonstrated its power of producing the greatest number of symptoms similar to those observable in the case of disease under treatment, does also, in doses of suitable potency and attenuation, rapidly, radically, and permanently remove the totality of symptoms of this morbid state, that is to say, the whole disease present, and change it into health, and that all medicines cure, without exception, those diseases whose symptoms most nearly resemble their own, and leave none of them uncured. Here again there is a small footnote to this aphorism which you can read. Hahnemann makes a couple of very important statements in this aphorism. Number one, he said, pure experience using proved medicines is the high and only source of knowledge for the healing art. He uses the word oracle to depict that high and only source of knowledge. So the first thing that he said was that pure experience using proved medicine, and in the footnote he says that the pure experience does not mean the experience that other schools get by using complex prescriptions for a number of diseases about which they don't know much, and the medicines that they have not tested. He said in that footnote that this is not the kind of experience that he is saying. The pure experience means the knowledge of medicine that one acquires after testing them on healthy individuals and then applying them on the sick rationally by using the symptom similarity. Number two, that his point that he made in this aphorism is that a medicine that has produced the maximum number of similar symptoms during a drug proving on a healthy human being removes the totality of symptoms of a disease state. Okay, so here again what he's saying is that the medicine that produces the maximum number of similar symptoms, this is important. this degree of similarity is important. The number 3 point that he made is that the medicine has to be given in suitable potency and dilution to be most effective. That is, to be able to cure rapidly, totally, and permanently. This is again of great significance, as many modern day teachers claim that potency and dose is of little significance. It is the similarity alone that counts. There are people who treat every case with a 30C or a 1M. These people should read the Organon again. Now to make the fourth point that he made in this aphorism is, he says that now to make it clearer, Hahnemann has said that a disease state will be removed quickly, totally, and permanently if, the if is highlighted here, if the medicine selected is known to produce very similar symptoms during the drug proving and is given in suitable potentized and diluted doses. This implies that the more similar the medicine, the more rapid the cure. But similarity is a relative word. There could be many remedies with different degrees of similarity to a given case. So this also implies that the less similarity, the less rapid is the result. But the result could still be there. Of course, the remedy should not be totally off the hook. Otherwise, there won't be any results. This explains why we are able to get decent results even with partially similar remedies. Another implication is that if the remedy is less similar, the result may not be radical and permanent. Such a remedy may only be able to palliate or remove some set of symptoms, but will not be able to cure the patient in totality. So the result that we will get depend upon the degree of similarity. If the remedy is dissimilimum, we will see radical and rapid cure. If it is a very close similimum, we will still manage to cure, though not as rapidly as the ideal cure. But if it is still less similar, we will be only able to palliate or remove partial set of symptoms. Then the last highlight of this aphorism, the point number 5 that I am going to state is, in this aphorism, he also says that when the symptoms are removed in totality, no part of the disease remains and the health is restored. This line has been written to counter the claims of some people who used to say that by using homeopathic remedies, the symptoms may disappear, but the disease lurks within the human body. Hahnemann has made it clear at many points that the symptoms are the language of the disease. The symptoms are the indicators of the disharmony within. If there are no symptoms, it only means that the disease has been cured in totality and the health of the individual has been restored. So we see that Hahnemann has explained in great detail about the knowledge of medicine in these aphorisms. We'll continue this discussion next month when we'll explore nature's law of cure and we'll try to find out why we are more susceptible to our remedies in the disease state. Till then, listen to the lecture again and try to absorb what I have said. I wish you all a very happy and a homeopathic New Year.